I'm no tech genius, but I knew if I wanted my business to crush it, I needed a website now. Thankfully, Bluehost made it easy. I customized, optimized, and monetized everything exactly how I wanted with AI. In minutes, my site was up. I couldn't believe it. The search engine tools even helped me get more site visitors. Whatever your passion project is, you can set it up with Bluehost. With their 30-day money-back guarantee, what do you got to lose? Head to Bluehost.com. That's BLUEHOST.com to start now.
Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, Emmy Award-winning writer Rick Mitchell talks about running for student council.
Now, I had no interest in student council. This was introduced to me, student council, in my elementary school. I remember we had it that early, and people were trying to get me to run, which I thought was ridiculous that it was even an option in elementary school. I don't know why we're teaching kids to lie and deceive that early. But for some reason, they had all the positions, like that you could run for president at 8 years old, vice president, I guess in case the president gets shot or something. I don't know. Treasurer, which I was like, who, you're letting the kid run the school's money? Like.
Today on the show, Rick Mitchell, author of How to Write a Funny Speech that he wrote with Carol Leifer, is on the show talking about how he ran for student council. Stay close.
Hey, this is Rick Mitchell, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show or a brand new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, you guys know I have been putting episodes out sporadically, to say the least, and most of the audience knows. But my guest today, Rick Mitchell, he doesn't know this. I don't think, if he knows this, that would floor me. Very little surprises me. But if he knew this, last year I lost the hearing in my right ear, and I ended up getting a cochlear implant. So the surgery was in December. January, I was activated, as it were. And so now, it's getting better and better. Today's really good, actually. But my audiologist says it could take up to a year. So, but that's the reason why I haven't been putting out my regular schedule like I've done for 15 years. Rick, I've been doing the show for 15 years. It's a long time.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's incredible.
I've made hundreds of dollars. So anyway.
Wow, you were in it from the beginning, though.
Yeah, I know. You don't have to tell me.
Yeah.
You're preaching to the choir. Anyway, but today I'm really excited to have a guest with me. He is a writer and he has a brand new book out. His name is Rick Mitchell. Rick brings forth the topic, running for student council. You were running for student council. That's the story, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I look forward to hearing it. But before we get to your story, I will mention that I was in student council for when I was like a freshman and then a sophomore, and then I quit. But I tried it for a while. But I did.
And why did you quit?
Well, my dad, let's just bring down the whole show. My dad left the family, as it were. And so I was just at home, like my dad had left and all my siblings were gone and my mom was depressed. So I quit like cheerleading. I quit all my clubs. I quit I was the aide and all this stuff, and I quit everything and became a very serious weed smoker. And that's what's been going on the last 3 decades.
Okay. All right.
Well. Anyway, Rick does bring forth the topic, running for student council. But I'm so impressed with your resume, of course. Now you just put this book out with Carol Leifer. You wrote it together. It's called How to Write a Funny Speech for a Wedding, Bar Mitzvah, Graduation, and every other event you didn't want to go to in the first place.
Yeah. The
book is funny. It's fast. It's quick. I love that you guys actually give templates toward the end. I think is very that's like a really nice author to do that.
Yeah, I mean, because the idea is, look, we want the book is quick. We wanted it to be an easy read, and but putting a speech together does take some time,
Sure.
and we figure some people are maybe not going to have the time to do it, or maybe they're having trouble doing it. It's not easy being funny too. It can be tough finding the jokes. So we thought, let's put in some templates, kind of like a Mad Lib,
Yeah.
where
Well,
people can kind of just put in the stories
and
they like.
it's really interesting that you talk about speeches for all sorts of occasions, including funerals, which I think people
Mhm.
forget that sometimes people do have to say something, you know?
Absolutely. And I think our society, it's especially other countries treat it differently, and I think we're starting to move towards celebrating death rather than mourning it.
Hmm.
And so you see a lot of like celebrations of life now, and people give funny speeches at these things. It's a sad day, but it can also be a fun day, and a funny speech can really cut the tension in the room.
Yeah.
And so I think some people are afraid to do that, but you know, we have a speech in the book that Carol gave at her friend's funeral or celebration of life, and it was a funny speech, and
Yeah.
people really appreciated it.
Yeah. No doubt. Speaking of carols, Carol Burnett does a foreword for you guys in this book. And boy, that must have been, I mean, is that just a friend or how did that happen?
Well, Carol Leifer.
New Carol. Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know who I wrote it with, Carol Leifer, my friend, is a legend in comedy in
Yeah.
her own right, and she's written for every show you love,
Including the
SNL.
Oscars last week.
The Oscars last week. She just won the Emmy for Hacks, Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She also worked with Carol Burnett. And so Carol Burnett was so nice we asked her, and she was so nice to do that. So especially with not even knowing me, but she not only Carol gave Carol Burnett the book and said, if you have a chance, read it. I'd love to do. And she read it like that night.
Oh, that
And then
is so
came
great.
back to Carol and said, "Oh, I love this part on page 6." You said that, and just the nicest person. And so what a thrill for me to.
That's really
work.
a coup.
Yeah,
It's a coup, is what
I mean,
it is.
so it is. Everybody involved in the book is named Carol except me. So
Now, here's something you say that's interesting. Nothing can ruin a wedding faster than a long speech.
This is a killer.
Now,
This
wait,
is a killer. And
are you saying a long speech across the board, but specifically in the book, you say a wedding? Why is that?
Well, I mean, it is across the board. I think we say wedding there because that's sort of the most common place we've seen it. And but nothing. I mean, you see it again and again where people they feel. I think they feel like when they know somebody, they want to put everything they know about that person into a speech. And you don't have to put everything you know. You can keep it shorter. And so we say, look, 5 minutes, no longer than 5 minutes.
Right.
Take the best things you know about them, put it in, because nothing is worse than just a speech that rambles on and on and on. It usually seems to be because Carol and I have both had instances of seeing the father of the bride
Mm-hmm.
give long speeches. And Carol talks about one in the book where he's just like listing her resume of stuff she's done, and it's so boring. And it's like, that's not what this is,
Right. The other
And
thing
so,
you say
yeah.
is the best policy overall is to not swear.
Oh, totally. No, I mean, look, you're wearing a tux, or a dress. I mean, that gives you an indication of how important this event is, and you should keep it classy. People forget you've got children at a lot of these things. You have grandparents, aunts, uncles. So to be dropping an F-bomb may not be appropriate there. Now we say, read the room. Look, if you're doing a bachelor party and it's, with all your buddies, okay. And maybe, then they're not going to care. But I've been in a lot of these weddings where there's no way I was going to swear because it's not appropriate.
I hate when somebody goes up and makes the toast and talks about when that person and the bride or groom, we used to party, man, and we drank so much. And they talk about like consumption of alcohol and or drugs that make the rest of us look at them like, or, look at the person like, we weren't there. And so this is not interesting.
Yeah, not interesting at all. And actually a funny thing, and not particularly appropriate either most of the time. Again, people don't want to hear that. An interesting thing, this is actually how I met my wife. Was I was at a birthday party for a friend at we were at like a hotel bar, and there was a little dance floor there with a band, and I saw a beautiful woman in a green bridesmaid's dress, no other bridesmaids around. So I go over and talk to her, and it turned out she was in a wedding at the banquet hall next door that got way out of hand. And the best man got up there and said, let the affairs begin. And she's like, this is too much. And she stepped out. And so, whereas I'm grateful that I met my wife, these speeches like this, they do much more harm than good, you know? And so, yeah, keep it interesting, keep it classy, keep it short,
You also say to start off, and I like this, I think this is a nice solid piece of advice. Even if this is just the first time you are brainstorming and you write anything down, here's a good idea. Write 5 nice things about the person. Just write down 5 good attributes. Well, let's see what we have. I mean, is there
absolutely
anything?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the best thing you can do, because you're going, I don't know, there's nothing funny about him. I did this with one of my friends. I started just writing things down about him, and I found all these things I'd never thought of before.
Yeah.
And I'm a comedian. I'm supposed to think of those things, but I realized I was like, oh, he's got small ears. Can I use that in something? He wears tinier shirts than everyone else, so to show his muscles. So just little stuff like that. You find little things like that, and you can turn them into something. I mean, even like. I had one friend who I couldn't find anything about him, and because he was so nice. And so I ended up talking about that, how nice he was. And that turned into something funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything you can think of, you write it down.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing is to write it down and then, the next day look at it again and then look at it again. Maybe record it, you really have to get familiar with it. If you think about somebody who might be singing a song for an occasion, they know that song. I mean, that's the plan, to really know that song. So if you're giving a speech or you're a comedian, obviously, you need to have your quiver full.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We use the word quiver anymore. Is that used?
Yes, we're using it right now. That's perfect. No, I love that. And it's true. It's you got to get used to the person you're dealing with, the speech you're doing, as much time as you can take on it. It's going to be better,
It'll be better. Yeah.
It will. It just will be.
Line. And of course, try not to read it, right? We don't want anybody reading their speech.
Yeah, it's a hard thing because, you're nervous, obviously. A lot of people don't like public speaking, but much like comedians, we have a set list, we have just the topic that we need. So if you can really get the gist of it down and then you just have a little cheat sheet, then that's perfect. Nobody's going to get mad at you for that.
That's
but
right.
If you're sitting there reading the whole thing, I mean,
and just try to be normal, try to be comfortable. Like everybody can forgive if you have a scratch or if you are too close to the mic and something squeaks and you don't, something moves, something changes. Everybody knows this is, somebody's got, they'll give you a break, I guess is what I mean.
Absolutely. I mean, here's what's great about it is this isn't a comedy club, right? If I go to a comedy club, people will have an expectation that they're going to laugh. There's no expectation at these things. Wedding speeches have been so bad at weddings and other events. It works to your favor. Yeah. So even you messing up and having some jokes in there is going to be better than most of the.
Yeah. If you can make eye contact, you're already ahead.
Already ahead, for sure.
So, Rick, before we get to your story, which is about student council, I'm anxious to hear this. I did want to mention that you are, and you know this, I don't have to tell you, you're a 5-time Emmy-winning writer for the Ellen DeGeneres Show. And so were you on the last years of her world or before?
I was on the last 6 seasons, yeah.
Yeah.
And, won 5 Emmys, which was great.
And when
two.
When you win an Emmy like this, excuse me, when you win an Emmy like that, let me just ask you, does everybody on the team win it? So it's like there's 12 writers for Ellen and everybody gets a statue. Is that right?
Yeah, so I would get nominated in two categories, which was writing. So if we won for writing, then yeah, everyone on the writing team would win one. And then we would also be part of the show, right? So there were an even bigger group of people, like producers and writers and all sorts of people for when the show got nominated. So we won for best show when I was there three times, and then best writing twice.
It's
So
just
that was great.
unbelievable. That's so
It's
exciting.
great. It's so
Yeah.
fun. I mean, it's just the best
Congratulations.
thing.
So
Thank you.
if
Yeah.
the show, I'm just one more question. I don't mean to.
No,
If
as
the, sh-
many as you want.
if the show wins, so you're saying 80 people on staff, everybody gets a statue?
Well, not everybody submitted. So, like, yeah, I mean, there's certain people who maybe don't fall into the category of best show. I don't know exactly what that criteria was. I know that
Mm-hmm.
they would put the writers in, and they would even call us like producers just so they could submit us with the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's sort of some loopholes there where they would try to get as many people on it as possible.
Yeah.
And,
That's a lot of fun. It must have been very satisfying because just watching the Ellen show, every day was a little bit different. So it seemed like there was always new stuff going on, and it was also very current, so it was, I enjoyed it. It was crazy when all the tabloid stuff came out
yeah.
that attack her so personal. It's crazy, man. I don't, yeah.
It was a very odd thing to happen, and my problem was never with her. Everybody asks about this, by the way, of course, but and I have no problem talking about it. And she was great to me.
Yeah.
And I got to work. She asked me to work on her stand-up specials with her, and
Fantastic.
so I never got yelled at. She was great.
Huh.
I mean, look, sometimes the boss doesn't like something you're right.
Yeah.
And she was not mean about it. And then I go, okay, let's write something else then.
I get it. Yeah. No, I get it. I find her, very professional. I mean, really at the top of her game. And then when it stopped, it just seemed like so crazy because she was so, to me, it was, she's just so good and so polished. And
she really is one of the funniest, quickest people I've ever. I mean, to be in a room with her is just phenomenal, and such a pro. And it's one of those. If you work with these people, you start working with them, and you go, "Oh, that's why they're here." They have something about them, And she definitely has that.
And they put the work in, no matter who that person is. It's never like somebody just got lucky. That's not accurate. No way. Yeah, you got to be talented. All right, let's get over to your story. But before we do, I wanted to remind you guys, we're playing Story Smash at the Lyric Hyperion on Saturday, April 5th. We've got Wendy McClendon Covey playing the game and Danny Zucker, Blank Patch. So you guys check out storysmashshow.com for tickets. Story Smash coming April 5th. And also check out storyworthypodcast.com for more information. You know what you're doing. And let's get over to Rick right now. Like I said, he's a 5-time Emmy-winning producer and writer of Ellen DeGeneres' show. And he also spent years working on TMZ. Interesting. You're also a stand-up comedian, and you've appeared everywhere. You still go out, right?
Yeah, I still do stand-up. Yeah.
It's the best. You guys can find out a lot more about him at rickmitchell.com. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for Rick Mitchell.
So I grew up in Northern California, in a little place called Marin County.
Yeah.
For those people who don't know, the Golden Gate Bridge separates San Francisco to Marin. So if you go over the bridge from San Francisco, you're in Marin. And one of the wealthiest counties in California. I like to joke. I would say, it's so wealthy that growing up, bullies would steal my brunch money. So this is a wealthy area. But I lived in the northernmost town of Marin, which is Novato, which was it's less wealthy than more closer to the bridge. The more wealthy it gets. Anyway, I was in the less wealthy part, but still pretty wealthy. And I was in a middle school there, which for us was 6th through 8th grade. And we had this thing at our middle school called participation cards. And the way you would get participation cards was there were a few events a year where they would say, okay, if you come to the volleyball game tonight, we'll give you a participation card. If you would show spirit, they would give you a card. And the reason this was important is because the maybe top 30 or 40 people who had the most cards at the end of the year got to go on a field trip, which was to a water slide park or some sort of fun center, which as an adult, it's no big deal. As a kid, it's like I get to miss a day of school and I get to do that. That was everything.
It's everything.
Everything. And so I worked very hard to do that. And for sixth grade, I got enough. For seventh, I got enough, but it was getting harder each year. People were getting more into it. So it was like 10 cards was enough in sixth grade. And then 11 cards was enough in seventh. But then by eighth grade, I was like, I was trying any way I could to make sure I got enough cards. So I had heard a rumor that if you run for student council, that you would get a participation card, whether you won or not. Now, I had no interest in student council. This was introduced to me, student council, in my elementary school. I remember we had it that early, and people were trying to get me to run, which I thought was ridiculous that it was even in an option in elementary school. I don't know why we're teaching kids to lie and deceive that early, but for some reason they had all the positions, like that you could run for president at 8 years old, vice president, I guess in case the president gets shot or something. I don't know. Treasurer, which I was like, who, you're letting the kid run the school's money? Like
the milk money.
The milk money. Yeah, exactly. So I never really had any interest in politics, but for the participation card, and I didn't even need to win, let's give it a try. So I found the position that was like the lowest position I could run for, which was eighth grade representative. And I was like, I'll do that. That sounds easy. Let's just do that. I'll do the thing. I'll lose. I'll get the card, solidify my field trip. So they had some stuff you had to do, which was you had to make like, I think 2 signs at least to put up on the school. Now, this was 1993. So it's not like today where you could get AI to do it or, print up cool things on the computer and it's easy. This was hard. There was a guy, it was incredible thinking back how long ago it was, who ran for treasurer. And he found a way to put his face on a $100 bill.
Wow.
Which in 1993, I don't know how you have to know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy.
That's cool, man.
It was, we were like in awe. We were like, that's magic. Mine was not that. Mine was, I bought 2 poster boards from the drugstore, and I bought like neon paints to make the thing. And then I came up with clever slogans like Rick is your number 1 pick. That was my big one. And then my other big slogan was Rick for 8th grade representative. So apparently I just gave up. I was like, I got nothing else that rhymes with Rick. I can't do it. So those were my posters. I had them up and I was running against one person, this girl, Tori. And Tori was probably like me. We weren't the least popular. We weren't the most popular. So as this is going on, I'm starting to get more wrapped into it. Like, I think I can win this thing. People are coming up to me like, I'm going to be voting for you. And so now it's like going to my head. I'm like, I think we can win this. Now I'm kind of wanting to win. And so what's funny that I just wrote this book on funny speeches, how to write a funny speech. Tori gives her speech and it's a rap, which she has on like a microphone cassette. She took like a popular song at the time and then changed the word. It was amazing. It was great. I get up there, the man who now has written a book about how to write a funny speech and gave the most straightforward, unfunny speech. I don't know what, I was like, this is going to be serious, where you make all your false campaign promises like, oh, I'm going to lower prices of lunches, all the things there's no way you could possibly do.
Right.
And whatever, it's fine. I get apply. Still thinking there's a lot of people voting for me. This could happen, So after all the speeches are done, they do one final thing where they invite everybody up one more time to the end of the stage, one by one. So, okay, and here's for president, here's blah, blah, blah. And they come up to the end of the stage and everybody claps. And then another guy, oh, here's blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then for eighth grade representative Tori, and she comes out and they clap, and then here's Rick, and I got this idea in my head, moment, that it would be a funny idea or a cool idea to do this spin.
Oh, no.
Sort of like if you're putting on something and someone's like, hey, turn around for me, and you're like, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Why I got this idea, I don't know. That was splits it, and I do this spin. I'm immediately regretting it. I'm just hearing in the audience like, oh, no, you feel the judgment just coming down on you in the way middle school judgment does. And like, that's not good, is it? And afterwards, people are coming up to me going like, I was going to vote for you, but you did the spin. It's turning into like a Seinfeld episode or something.
Yeah.
The least popular kid in the school even comes up to me. He's like, just so you know, when you did that spin, everyone in the audience was like, what a dork. And we voted that day, and the results came out, and I lost.
Oh.
And I was crushed. And I wish I could know. I would love a time machine to go back in time and not do the spin. And see if I could win, see if I'd won, see how it would have maybe turned my life in a different direction. Would I have been a U.S. representative or president or leader of Doge or something, right?
So you didn't think about spinning until you were actually walking out onto the floor.
It was this great idea I had split second.
And
why?
I
don't know.
Did it.
I just did it.
You don't sound like you were an impulsive kid.
Not really, because look, I was like, even scared to try to like write a funny speech or anything, right? I mean, so I was just doing the straightforward speech. I don't know. I was like, I chose that moment to try to be funny or like interesting, and
they
it was
turned
like,
on you.
And they turned on me so quick.
Shit, man.
To this day, I can't. If somebody's telling me like, turn around, let me see that. I just hear, what a dork. That's all I hear now. I can't.
What does a therapist say about this reoccurring thought that you have from 30 years ago?
Mostly laughter, I think. Whenever. I mean, it's just one of those moments. It's just.
Did anybody say anything about it, like in the yearbook? Do you remember?
No, I think it was because this was in the beginning of the year. This was like fall. Yeah. So I feel like it was forgotten by then. I have to say, I think I've thought about it much more than anybody else over the years. I don't know if anybody else would remember it.
Yeah, I can be assured of that. Yes.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, did you ever run again? 9th, 10th, 11th? You had a future. You had a bright future.
Nope. That was it. I was like, I'm done with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting because then you become a comedian and you know all the rejection in the world.
Right. Well, maybe that's why I became a comedian, right?
That was your
searching
trauma?
for that approval, right? Maybe.
That's weak.
Maybe a little bit.
Your trauma has to be harder than that. Come on.
Yeah. No, I've got more too, but maybe that was part of it. But I did get the participation card, and I did go on the field trip that year. So
you did get the card.
Kind of happy story. I got the card.
That's what matters.
I made it on the field trip.
Man, this organization was harder to get into than SAG,
No kidding.
It's like getting Taft-Hartley. And then I think you had
about like 14 cards that year or something. Like it got competitive.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
You are funny. Do you have kids, Rick?
I do. I have one daughter. She's 13.
Oh, that's nice. I also have I have one daughter. They just turned 18.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
what do I have to look forward to?
Well,
people are warning me.
Yeah. They turned 18, so I did what any responsible mother does. I stopped breastfeeding. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
That's weird. Well, that's weird because I just started. So I don't know.
Yeah, my kid's going off to college, and so it's crazy. Like even thinking like I can count down carpools now. I'm at like 30 carpools and I'm out. I mean, I'm done.
Yeah.
Mama's hitting the road. I'm ready to go.
And is she Is she going nearby or is she going far away?
I think they'll go nearby, but we don't have we don't have any. We got into one school so far, but most of the admissions come out second week of March, so pretty soon here.
Okay.
And we're very excited. Oh,
That's so exciting.
Really, it definitely makes you a little sick to your stomach, this particular process.
Yeah. How do you feel about being an empty nester? Are you going to be okay with that?
No, it's great. It's great. No. I'm ready. I loved having one kid. Okay. I did everything, and then I'm done with everything and moved on.
Yeah.
I really like the number one kid. I really like that. I grew up the youngest of 6. So I always talk about how loud it was in our, house growing up. And sometimes I say, hey, Bama, listen to that. You hear anything? Nothing. That's because it's just me and you. Nobody's fighting. Nobody's screaming.
No. Yeah, that's where we're one and done too. And we were thinking at times, but we would check in with our daughter, like, what do you think about like a brother or sister? And she's like, well, maybe a sister. And we said, well, you wouldn't get to choose. She said, never mind. She's like, 3's a good number. Let's just keep it at 3.
That's so funny. Well, this has been so fun to talk to you. I really appreciate it. Again, your book, it's super funny. You guys should get it. It would also make a great gift, I think. How to write a funny speech for a wedding, bar mitzvah, graduation, and every other event you didn't want to go to in the first place. Super funny. I just loved it. And you guys can go over to rickmitchell.com, and I'm sure there's more info there. And I hope I see you out at a stand-up club at some point or something.
Absolutely. That would be so cool.
That would be fun. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to head over to StorySmashShow.com and get tickets for Story Smash coming up April 5th. All right, you guys, one more time on behalf of the very talented Rick Mitchell, my name is Christine Blackburn, saying...